So hey people, Max Mike here. Now, I know you follow the news and the scream sheets, so by now I know you've heard about the assassination of those ESA officials during their big conference in Zurich, right? Yeah, the news says it's high rider extremist, lunar separatists pushing back on ESA expansion on the moon. But of course, that's not really what's going on here. Never is. Now, I've got friends in, let's say, high places, and they told me the truth of the matter. See, a few weeks ago, a Militech espionage team infiltrated an Arasaka base in the Mare Nubium. That's the Sea of Clouds. They were there because of unusual seismic activity at the base. It's an indicator that Arasaka's moving around a lot of regolith construction. For you dirt boys and dirt girls in the audience, let me clarify. Regolith's just a fancy name for moon rocks. So what did they find, you ask? Only a partially completed and totally unauthorized mass driver. That's a big rock thrower. It's really good for getting cargo materials back down to Earth from the moon. And also, as we learned in the last war, it's a great way to drop rocks on cities. So you might not know this, but new mass drivers are strictly regulated by international treaty, and they're prohibited under ESA lunar use contracts. The ESA has the ultimate high ground advantage in any Earth conflict with their own Tycho and Copernicus mass drivers. And they really don't want anyone else having that same advantage, especially Arasaka. So, my friends in the know tell me that Militech seems to have fed that information about Arasaka's secret mass driver to the ESA committee in advance of Arasaka's upcoming lunar contract renegotiations. And to keep their contracts, Arasaka has taken the drastic action to eliminate anyone in the ESA who might have seen this data on their mass driver. But hey, this was sloppy by Arasaka's standards. In fact, so sloppy, I'd be really surprised if this had come from the top. I'm guessing some middle manager somewhere was just trying to cover their ass.
Good morning, Night City! Is it a mirage? A hologram? No, my friends, it's clear open skies. But don't take it from me. Get out there and enjoy the sun.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, reports of hardship have emerged from Alaska. According to the Incorporated Press, corn harvests have dropped by 80% from last year's yields, the result of catastrophically heavy rains and floods plaguing the region. Local authorities are under obligation to provide nearly 80 million bushels of their crop to Biotechnica, the engineers behind the frost corn hybrid species. The city of Juneau now faces a difficult choice of whether to honor the agreement, causing severe shortages in Alaska, or break the contract and forego next year's seed corn delivery from Biotechnica. Whether you believe Alaskans deserve humanitarian aid, or perhaps a lesson in self-reliance, cast your vote at the address below. Freak accident or targeted attack. Nanobees terrorize the residents of Milan. Eyewitness accounts tell us 7 million of the Fenghuang nanobots suddenly ceased their pollination functions and buzzed straight for the Lombardy capital, though the cause remains unknown. The nanobees infested several buildings and moving vehicles, causing numerous reported accidents. The mayor of Milan, Lorenzo Ricci, announced the formation of an investigative committee to determine the cause behind the bizarre phenomenon. Ever dreamed of being a head of state? Now may be your chance. Luxury real estate firm No Limits at All has announced another 15 artificial islands, available for sale now. Each island spans at least 3 square miles and possesses a foundation built to withstand an 8 on the Richter scale. Because they are located in international waters, island owners fall under no nation's jurisdiction and are free to establish and enforce local law and custom. For more information on your future slice of paradise, visit the address below. In the meantime, this lovely West Coast weather isn't a bad substitute. Thanks for tuning in, Night City.
NC, back with you so soon? How's your afternoon? Where is the division between man and machine? To find the answer, check out the latest book from Richard Sanchez titled Chromo Sapiens. In a nutshell, according to Sanchez, humankind can never be fully automated because of, quote, all our damn brain chemistry. I wonder if this bestseller has made the Maelstrom Book Club's reading list.
Good evening, Night City! My guest today is Mark Muratovich, author of Flowers of Silence, the untold story of Hanako Arasaka. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, Ziggy. Happy to be here.
Tell me, did you ever consider researching a less hazardous topic? Maybe scavenger chop shops or the inside of a volcano?
Well, it's true. Saburo Arasaka wasn't exactly ecstatic to hear I'd taken such a keen interest in writing a piece on his beloved daughter.
Now, in case my dear viewers don't recall, the last person to pen a biography on Hanako Arasaka committed suicide. The poor man shot himself 10 times in the back.
Yes, well, that was a sad story, but of course he wrote his book in secret, without express consent.
I certainly hope you haven't made the same mistake.
Heavens, no.
Phew. So then tell us, Flowers of Silence. How did you come up with that title?
It comes from an old Japanese proverb, unspoken words are the flowers of silence. I feel it encapsulates Hanako so perfectly. She leaves her residence only a few times a year, rarely speaks publicly, and is always surrounded by a small army of bodyguards.
Wow, how does she occupy so much time cooped up in that crystal cage of hers? Origami? Crossword puzzles?
I'm afraid I don't know, but her villa is equipped with a private fiber optic cable capable of 300 terabytes of bandwidth. So...
Are you suggesting she's a netrunner?
Well, now, I didn't say that.
We have to take a quick break, but stay with us. I'm not done with our Mr. Mark Muratovich just yet. Welcome back to Night After Night. I'm Ziggy Q, and we have a special guest tonight. He wants to be your next mayor, Mr. Jefferson Perales.
Hi, Ziggy. How have you been?
Me? I didn't think you'd care. About me or any of us, for that matter. Let me refresh your memory.
But some cynics out there don't see Night City's beautiful potential as I do.
Do I love this city? Do I love its people? I have never loved anything. A classic Holt tactic.
How do you mean?
Well, that was taken out of context. I was responding to a question about my love for the city and how I differ from your average CEO whose only goal is a fatter paycheck. Nasty tricks are a substitute for Holt's lack of achievements, I suppose.
Okay, Jeff, in that case, how would you heal Night City?
A 3% change, sure. But do you know how? Holt changed the status of Pacifica into a sort of unincorporated area, meaning that the district's statistics no longer drag down those of the whole city. It isn't progress, just creative bookkeeping.
But he claims both crime and unemployment have dropped under his watch.
For starters, I'd relinquish all corporate representatives from the Night City Council.
Whew! You know, it's refreshing to know some politicians still have a spine. More after the break. Night City, hello and welcome. Today we have been honored with the presence of a woman with a body of chrome and a voice of gold. Please welcome Lizzie Wizzy.
Hey, Ziggy. How's my favorite host?
You know, not so bad. I was just about to sit down with the hottest star on this planet.
Oh, please.
Well, you asked. So then, Lizzie, everyone's dying to hear about your new album, Fuck All Walls. Tell us, please, which walls you mean and why you'd like us all to, well, you know.
Well, those walls can be interpreted in different ways.
But the cover shows an actual wall, one separating North and South California. In fact, we have an image of it right here.
Yes. For me personally, I see the wall as the fracturing of society, the death of empathy.
Of course. What lies on the other side of that wall is something you can't see, and what you don't see can't concern you.
Exactly. California used to be a single state, much like the US was a unified country. Sure, many of us were divided by ideology, but something still connected us all. Today, though, it's everyone for themselves, cut off, isolated. We split people into camps of the best and the worst. Every day, dozens of people die at the foot of that wall, only because they seek a better life for themselves and their families.
But don't you believe every country has a right to defend its borders?
I think I can answer you best with a favorite quote of mine. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's why I say, fuck all walls!
Would you like to stand up for what you believe in? Change the world for the better. If you buy Lizzie Wizzy's new album today, you'll receive her bonus track, Born Equal.
It's worth it, my wonderful, gorgeous friends. Let your voices be heard.
Until next time, Night City, and remember, fuck all walls!
All right, listen up, people. I've got a public service announcement. It's about the scourge of our age, that chrome nightmare that you know as cyberpsychosis. It seems we can't go a day without some boosted lunatic tearing through a crowd of bystanders. The story you've always heard is that it's a psychological condition, a kind of dissociative violence. But is there more to it? What if cyberpsychosis is intentional? I once heard a theory that I think merits some thought. An old friend of mine used to say that he thought the biggest manufacturers had got together a long time ago and agreed on a baseline failure rate for certain devices. Bad code intentionally inserted into the mind-machine interfaces to slowly drive people up the wall, a kind of human planned obsolescence. They figure, what's the best defense against a nut job with a 23-inch telescoping blade in his forearm? A 26-inch telescoping blade in yours. I can't say he's not onto something. Every time some psycho tears his way through a mall, sales of combat cyberware spike. Every time Net54 News runs a story on a massacre, some Arasaka exec buys himself a new yacht. Can that be all, though? It's no secret that incidents of violent cyberpsychosis have skyrocketed in recent decades, despite improvements in manufacturing and design. But there is something new in the latest generation cyberware. Get ready for this, kids. It's the Black Wall. You aren't a runner yourself, or a code jockey, you might not know, but the Black Wall isn't some mystical barrier floating somewhere in the deep net. It's actually a complex hardware-software infrastructure designed to keep AIs from accessing your gear, among other things. Maybe it doesn't work as well as NetWatch says. Maybe the madness of the deep net leaks over to our side from the Black Wall from time to time. Drives some poor chumbo right over the edge. And it's possible it doesn't really exist anyway. Maybe it's just something the media came up with. Look, I'm not saying there aren't attacks. I've seen a few myself. What I am saying is there's a million reasons why one human might want to butcher another. Hell, we've been doing it for millions of years, even without cyberware. But let me tell you, listeners, with cyberware, it's easier than ever. And then on the other side, maybe the corporate and media types just came up with a word, so they wouldn't have to think too hard about it. And you wouldn't either. Of course, this is all speculation. If I knew what caused cyberpsychosis, believe me, I'd tell you.
Hey y'all, Karina here, your BDMD. Have you relived the passion of Joshua yet? If that's a no, then drop everything and slip that wreath on. Now, I've come across a lot of emotionally powerful BDs in my time. Birth, death of a loved one, even rape, as horrible as it sounds. But this, wow, this is on another level, like a revelation, a true-to-life miracle. I felt like I was touching heaven, like God God spoke to me. I was bawling like a baby. I'm serious. I'm telling you, it's a BD experience everyone ought to relive. Today, right now. The Passion of Joshua is already available on all feeders for only $39.99, and it's worth every penny. Be right back with more BD news from around the world after the break.
On Trauma Team Diaries, we often share the experiences of our clients. Colin was joined by his brother, wife, and their 2 children. But of them all, only Colin held a trauma team policy.
Do I remember the Washington Street accident? How could I not? His vehicle had collided with an automated refuse truck which had broken down on the roadway. When we arrived at the scene, we saw that he wasn't alone.
Colin reached the hospital in just 1 minute and 27 seconds. His family, however, waited on a city ambulance for nearly 2 hours. But by then, it was already too late. If Colin had used Trauma Team's family care promotion, which offers a 20% discount on a policy for up to 5 family members, this story could have had a happy ending. To learn more about this offer to safeguard your loved ones, please call 949-TRAUMA-TEAM. On Trauma Team Diaries, we often share the experiences of our clients. Among them are corporate managers, celebrities, politicians, why, even dogs. Yes, you heard me correctly. Trauma Team ensures the well-being of many of our 4-legged friends. Bonkers is one such lucky pup, the furry friend of superstar Lizzie Wizzy. Last year, Bonkers was abducted from the celebrity icon's residence in North Oak. The abductors demanded tens of millions for his ransom. But when Bonkers' biomonitor registered an abnormal spike in cortisol, the Trauma Team leapt into action. Senior Specialist Alan Zhang was one team member who took part in the rescue.
Oh, I'll never forget that day. My proudest moment on the team without question. The dog's signal pinged us from a slime pit noodle bar in Kabuki. We dropped on him like a hammer, flashbanged and several smart gun rounds through the wall. 5 seconds, 5 corpses. That's when we heard the whimpering. My heart melted. Bonkers, come here, boy. Your mama's been waiting for you. Who's a good little doggy? Huh? Who's a good little boy?
To speak with one of our representatives today, call 949-TRAUMA-TEAM. Trauma Team, keeping all of your loved ones safe. On Trauma Team Diaries, we often share the experiences of our clients. But today, we give voice to the heroes who rescued them. Their brushes with death, their heart-stopping stories of survival. Trauma Team paramedics must be able to save a life, as well as take one. After completing a year-long course in first aid, they move their training to the shooting range. Pistols, smart guns, heavy weapons, grenades. Our medical experts must become as competent with firearms as they are with a defibrillator. In matters of life and death, Trauma Team is always a bullseye. And that's no exaggeration. Last year, Trauma Team's mission success rate reached 98.9%. Alaya Bird has been an AV pilot with Trauma Team for over 7 years. Before that, she worked as a driver in Militech's Armored Transport Division.
What do I love most about my job? The adrenaline. When you're screaming through Night City at over 300 miles per hour during peak traffic, every nanosecond counts.
Are there any disadvantages?
Well, I can't exactly watch TV or movies. My implants process what I see at over 1,000 frames per second. It's like watching a slideshow. I react faster than I can move my own hands, faster than my own thoughts. But that's a small price to pay for a life beyond the speed of sound.
Every quarter, Alaya undergoes a thorough review to ensure her cyberware is optimally calibrated by our team of engineers, and every line of code is meticulously analyzed by our programmers. Before a city ambulance can even pull out of the garage, Alaya is already at the scene, saving lives. 1 minute and 26 seconds. That's That's the average response time for a trauma team AV to reach a client in distress. We want to give her every edge to quicken her reaction time and sharpen her reflexes. To speak with one of our representatives today, call 949 Trauma Team.
So people, listen up. I've got a story to share with you. Recently, I've been hearing about this monk that's been walking around nice city streets, healing the sick, but only those he deems worthy. Some of my listeners seem convinced that it's none other than Raish Bartmoss. Raish Bartmoss. Yeah, you know, the guy, the chief architect of the net, and later its badass destroyer. The rumor has always been he got taken out by a killsat in the early days of the Fourth Corporate, but no one ever took responsibility for that strike. Is it possible Bartmoss set his creations wild and faked his own death? Did he bring down the net he created because it had turned into another tool the corporations could use to track us and to ultimately completely subjugate us? Think about it. Okay, people, listen up. This one comes to me from a listener who raises a great question. And he suggests an answer. How does the Arasaka family live so long? What about the Lucchese's, or half a dozen other high-profile corpo families that are pushing 200 years at this point? His answer? The vampires. The world is ruled by vampires. Well, folks, I can't say I haven't thought about it that way, but let's consider the evidence. There's the obvious. They seem to live forever and they look good doing it. Have you seen the documentary recently about Hanako Arasaka? She doesn't look a day over 40, but she's currently pushing her 8th decade. They drink blood. Yeah, checks out. They drain this city for sure. They sleep in coffins. Well, I do happen to know Saburo Arasaka spent the better part of this century in a medical tank to keep him alive. What do the medtechs call it? Ah, the sarcophagus. Yeah, it's more of a mummy thing, but close enough. They can only be killed with a wooden stake. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. But maybe someone should test this out and let me know.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. A dead city livens up the news today. Following the catastrophic use of biological weapons in Busan during the Militech-Arasaka conflict of the early 2020s, essentially all forms of life have been wiped clean from the megacity. Millions of people, animals, and plants were eradicated in a matter of minutes. And a similar fate awaits any to this day who strays too close to the southern edge of the Korean peninsula and the waters surrounding it. Though not all in the city lie still, automated systems powered by local tidal energy continue to operate unsupervised. Netwatch has warned that without proper maintenance, any Busan-based AI could, in time, pose a considerable threat. Arasaka has washed their hands of the issue, placing full blame for the ecological and subsequent technical crisis with Militech, who dropped the bombs. NUSA President Rosalind Myers has declined to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Pedanian government is once again in the midst of a campaign to prevent illegal excavations and looting in the city of Venice. 4 looters and 7 carabinieri were killed in the most recent altercation. This city, submerged under the Adriatic Sea, still hides many centuries-old and priceless works of art. High demand from collectors has spurred on the continued looting. Official figures estimate the net worth of Venetian sculptures and jewelry sold illegally on the black market would be equivalent to 1/3 of the Pedanian economy's GDP. Most stolen works eventually find their way to collectors in private or rural stations, making reclamation a difficult process. Further west, Switzerland has officially become the first nation committed to a fully automated military by 2080. Already, 90% of the Swiss armed forces consist of Lobos, drones, and automated vehicles. The Officer Corps makes up the remaining 10%. As the Swiss government phases out its current Officer Corps, they will begin implementation of the CVS Pacem automated command system. As stated in the government's official press release, Switzerland can at last achieve its goal of true neutrality. CVS Pacem will secure our borders but will never position Switzerland as the aggressor. And that's the world's latest. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
Night City! Josh Kevorkian here. And as always, your business is my business. Anyone out there still clinging onto shares in the NCPD?
If so, I recommend getting the doctor who woke you up from that coma to call your broker ASAP. But in all seriousness, abandon ship. Sell, sell, sell. The Night City police force is reeling from yet another day in the red. Since January, the NCPD's capitalization has slumped by a whopping 17%. And just after the force seemed poised for a meteoric rise, following its privatization in 2076, they announced an ambitious recovery proposal. A drones for cops replacement plan, a €5 per minute 911 hotline, a closer partnership with privatized prisons, but by the year's end, the gaping hole in their budget didn't shrink an inch. The mayor's office has a new proposal on the table for this lingering police problem. In the new solutions corner stand lobbyists from the corporate security industry. And you know what, folks? I say it's about damn time. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. The NCPD is a relic, a fossil. They're too blind to see that it's profit that drives success. If you want to be safe, and I mean truly safe, invest in the Ofuda protection plan from Arasaka. Take advantage of a today-only promo price of €100,000 to keep you secure for an entire year. Spend wiser, never a miser, my friends. That's it today for Your Business is My Business. Until next time.
Well, that's a good question, listener. I'll tell you, I have lived in a mega building. In fact, I lived in one of the first ones ever built in Watson. I didn't have much option. It was either that or go outside and find a squat underneath a radioactive bridge somewhere. So it's crowded. You get to know your neighbors real well. Some of them you don't want to know real well. But problem is, when you've got several 100,000 people, you got to put them somewhere. And Night City was not a good place to put people 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. There was a big hole in the ground, a lot of glowy stuff, and most of the inner city was wiped. So what do I think? I think they're a necessary evil. They cleaned it up a bit. I mean, the first ones in Watson were a bit sketch, but we need them. They're not the best deal, but they might be the only deal we've got in town. This is the voice of Night City, Maximum Mike. Autonomous taxis, huh? I'm surprised they haven't done it more often. I mean, after all, they're not too smart. They're not like AIs or anything. I'm not even sure even AIs could do that. No, most probably someone hasn't been keeping up on all the real complex maintenance you need to do to keep one of these autonomous taxis on the road. And when you start cutting corners, that really, really simple, stupid robot stuff starts getting real simple and real stupid. So crashing into people, crashing into walls, buildings, could be anything, but I'd put it down to faulty maintenance instead of something real sinister. Of course, I could be wrong. If any of you listeners have anything you want to send in on me, call my producer. I'll look into it. Well, I suppose I could give you the usual claptrap the politicians do about thank you for your service, but they don't care, and they didn't care when I mustered out either. What are you going to do? Well, unfortunately, the nature of human beings the way they are, there's going to be wars. And even if they're not declared wars, there's always going to be a need for somebody who knows how to get around, use weapons, protect stuff, manage to get a hand onto, let's say, military hardware, know their way around it. So, what are you to do? I'd say be a solo. It's worked for me in the past. Probably worked for you.
Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan. We begin now with your latest local news. The 54th anniversary of the AHQ disaster is fast approaching. In 2023, Night City was shaken to its core by the detonation of a tactical nuclear bomb in Arasaka's NC headquarters. 12,000 were killed instantly by the blast, and thousands more later succumbed to acute radiation sickness. This tragic incident which some ultimately attribute to Arasaka's wanton imperialist tendencies, has forever left a mark on our city's history. And now, an important message for Watson residents. The homelessness problem plaguing the district's sewer system will be addressed as fumigation of the tunnels begins tomorrow. Due to the use of potent neurotoxins, Watson residents are urged to stay clear of storm drains and sewer entrances to minimize risk of injury and death. Next, is it the end of eastbound traffic jams on the I-9? Long-awaited repairs to Ring Road East may begin as early as next month. Estimates put investment into this major artery at close to 20 million euro dollars, with priority being placed on efficiency and anti-nomad barriers. And that is it for your latest local news. After the break, we have a look at our world report. Hello, Night City. I'm Jillian Jordan with N54 News, and this is your local latest. The NCPD has urged caution when using data terms. A routine inspection has shown many have been corrupted with malware. Police experts have confirmed the identified virus can lead to cyberware failure and, in extreme cases, even death. In response to increased gang activity, the mayor's office has raised the public threat level to red. Residents of Arroyo and Watson are advised not to leave their homes after dark and always ensure easy access to protective firearms. Schools and hospitals have been closed until further notice. What's next for Pacifica? The district, formerly designed as an oasis of luxury, has become a den for violent gangs and drug addicts. Kang Tao recently expressed interest in the purchase of Pacifica property with the aim of constructing a new server and logistics center. The city government has openly considered selling the land for a single euro dollar in a symbolic gesture, provided that Kang Tao demonstrates commitment to eradicating the district's criminal presence. Today's final story is an unwelcome one for pet owners. The canine ownership tax will increase to 1,000 euro dollars per dog per month. Similarly, the fine for possessing an undocumented animal will increase to 40,000 euro dollars. Thank you for tuning in to the N54 local news. Have a pleasant day.
1919 was a year of great change in our history. The onset of American Prohibition, the end of World War I, and the birth of Saburo Arasaka. From an early age, Saburo was heavily involved in the business his father had founded. As a young man, he quickly demonstrated the work ethic and natural talent becoming of an exceptional manager. That is, until his promising career was abruptly interrupted by war upon his doorstep. Saburo Arasaka enlisted as a pilot in the Nippon Kaigun, the Japanese Imperial Navy. By the age of 23, he had already achieved the rank of lieutenant. With 20 confirmed aerial victories, he forever will be honored as one of the Imperial Army's most accomplished fighter pilots. But in 1942, during a routine mission, his plane was severely damaged. Yet, overcoming both grievous injury and a malfunctioning aircraft, Saburo managed to return to base. The injury sustained by Saburo Arasaka in 1942 ultimately proved serious enough to disqualify him from further combat missions. He could now only watch as the empire he defended began to suffer more and more losses, until their eventual and unconditional surrender in 1945. According to family accounts, Saburo, gripped by despair and shame, had resolved to commit seppuku, but then changed his mind at the very last moment. Why? No one knows. From the day he nearly took his own life, Saburo Arasaka has refused to speak about his wartime experience with anyone. He devoted his complete attention to one thing alone: his work. Following the death of his father, Sasai Arasaka, in 1960, Saburo assumed control of the family business. Under his direction, their humble company began on its path to becoming a world-leading corporate giant. It was in 1990 when Arasaka Corp first emerged on the Global 500 list. Then in 1996, after the collapse of the United States, it rose to number 2 in the rankings. At the most trying time in our history, Saburo Arasaka provided thousands of Americans with reliable work and helped us regain a sense of our former prosperity. For that, we will always owe him a debt of gratitude. Arigato gozaimasu, Saburo-san.
Good evening, Night City! Boy, do I have a treat for you! Make that 3 treats! On the show, we have the girls from, wait, how do you say it? Ass cracks? Us cracks?
Ziki, you can say it however you want. Meow. He's pretty cute in person, isn't he?
It's a relief to see you girls in such high spirits. I mean, after someone destroyed your equipment truck, it must have been terrifying.
You are joking? It was wild. This is why we love Night City. It is so crazy. Exactly. Tokyo is so boring.
And if a man set fire to your limo right now, what would you say to him?
Invite us with you next time. Pow boom!
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Us cracks! Don't miss their upcoming concert. You've never seen anything like it.
And now, loyal listeners, a special bulletin. Saburo Arasaka, the ancient patriarch of the Arasaka Corporation, has died. Just kidding, folks. You're too smart for that. You and I both know he's not really dead. Saburo Arasaka spent nearly 100 years now on a quest for eternal life. He's guarded around the clock by a private army and lived for the better part of the century in a med tank designed to regenerate organic tissue. Guys like that, they don't just die. They certainly don't just get murdered by rivals. What would Saburo even be doing in Night City? No, folks, this is a smokescreen for something. And it wouldn't be the first time. If you're old enough to remember the Fourth Corporate War, there was a widespread report that Saburo had been killed by the Japanese SDF in a bid to end the war. Of course, it turned out not to be true, and the war dragged on for another year. No, you can take this one to the bank. It's only a matter of time before Saburo's going to show up on TV, tell us all he's back as CEO and ready to take the Arasaka Corporation into the next century. Yo, people. So, I don't know if you saw the news, but there's a Klimt exhibit that's opening at the California Museum of Art, San Francisco, in a few weeks. I like Klimt. I was planning on going myself, but I figure there's no point. I mean, after all, it's nothing but high-quality forgeries. What? You mean you think they keep any art on Earth? No, from Picasso to Da Vinci, Pickman, and Mapplethorpe. I've been told they've been taken to a secure vault on Luna. Why? Well, that's unclear. Reportedly, it's because after the Fourth Corporate War nearly brought an end to civilization, some of the richest people on Earth got together and made an insurance policy of sorts. Keep the cultural heritage of the Earth in a secure place, out of harm's way in case of another, more serious war. And on the face of it, that's not really bad. But I've heard a darker rumor. I'll fill you in, but first, let me tell you a little story. Long time ago, I knew a guy who owned a small restaurant. Now, things were good for a while, but times change, tastes change, rent goes up, way up. So he decides to cash in on his insurance policy by setting the place on fire. Now, don't worry, I'm not giving away any secrets here. I mean, he was caught, convicted, served his time in a brain dance cube, and now he walks the streets a free man. But you know how they caught him? Before he burned down his diner, he took out all the expensive kitchen equipment and sold it. Dead giveaway. So think about this. Someone up on Luna is taking all the stuff on Earth they think has value. Maybe they're not just hoarding it. Maybe they're planning something else. Think about it, folks. And the next time you see a rocket launched from the spaceport, ask yourself this. What if that's the last shipment?
No jokes today, Night City. Not when it means keeping you good people safe. Biotechnica's Institute of Meteorology has issued a severe sandstorm warning. Authorities have urged residents to stay at home or another well-sheltered location. No resources, they say, have been set aside for search and rescue efforts. Welcome to paradise, folks.
Hello and welcome to WNS News. I'm Arif Iqbal. Today, we have several important public service announcements. In Arroyo, a terrorist group dubbing itself a trade union has been eradicated. These self-proclaimed representatives of Night City's working class attempted to organize a strike, which could have led to financial losses in the millions. Remember, if you come across these so-called union representatives, immediately contact the NCPD or the appropriate corporate security forces. More and more patients have been filing into hospitals throughout Night City with injuries caused by malfunctions in illegally purchased cyberware. Unauthenticated implants have caused several fatal short circuits already. The NCPD urges all cyberware users to buy only from licensed manufacturers. It's worth the investment. Numerous nomad caravans have appeared near city limits in North Oak and Charter Hill. Some reports suggest some of the violent vagrants may have entered Night City despite the NCPD's best efforts. If you spot a nomad, remember that you have the right to self-defense. With such dangerous criminals, warning shots alone are not considered an effective deterrent. Now, today's final story. An NCART station is stunned by a bloody massacre. The unidentified assailant opened fire on passengers waiting for the train on Platform 2 at Med Center. 10 people are confirmed dead and 16 injured. We advise Night citizens to thoroughly consider all transport options to find the safest solution. Thanks for tuning in to WNS News. Stay safe out there, Night City.
This is N54 News with a breaking story. A cyber psycho attack shocks Wellsprings. Lester McKenzie, age 28, opened fire at the River Mall shopping center. The shooting lasted 10 minutes before the assailant was killed, shortly after MaxTac forces arrived. The Implant Manufacturers Association has issued a statement in response to the incident, stating, quote, "Our thoughts and prayers go to the victims and their families. We at the IMA extend our sincerest condolences in the wake of this unavoidable tragedy." End quote. 35 people were pronounced dead at the scene and another 20 remain in critical condition. River Mall administration has announced plans to reopen within the hour. They have offered a 50% discount at participating stores to the families of the victims. Stay tuned to N54 News for developments on this story. Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan, and here's what's happening in the world today. The last active photovoltaic solar farms have been decommissioned in Nevada and Utah. Solar power generation, once seen as the future of clean energy in America, has suffered significant setbacks in today's more extreme climate. The layer of dust suspended in our atmosphere, a result of the Himalayan wars, has limited the amount of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface. More importantly, the increasing regularity of hurricanes and sandstorms caused frequent and costly damage to most solar farms. Unsurprisingly, wind power has fared just as poorly. The number of active turbines has plummeted by 63% over the last 15 years alone. It appears Q2 will remain the uncontested leader in the energy sector for the foreseeable future. In mainland Europe and the Mediterranean, the humanitarian crisis has grown worse. According to the latest report, as much as 20% of the continent is no longer suitable for human habitation. Temperatures in Sicily, Malta, and the Cyclades have reached as high as 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Air pollution in Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania now exceeds the continent's average by more than 2,000%. However, heads of state in France, England, and Germany have issued a joint statement in which they preclude the option of government intervention. Their statement reads, quote, "Interference by government authority is interference in the free market. The disruption of natural market mechanisms only serves to hinder the optimal path for solutions to current problems." End quote. In other news, China has become the first country in the world to formally ban the use of human-controlled road vehicles. From now on, Chinese citizens can use only autonomous vehicles approved by government regulators. State-validated self-driving vehicles will be limited to pre-authorized routes, such as a person's commute to and from work. The Chinese government has given citizens a week to report all manually operated vehicles still in use, and to submit all bicycles for installation with state-issued GPS tracers. Thank you for watching N54 News. Join us again next time.
So hey people, listen up, I've got a story to tell. Goes back to an old friend of mine, a net runner whose name I can't say on air for reasons of personal and global security. And she once told me that she knew the real origins of the net. This friend, she's been around. She started running back before the data crash, when the deep net was open to all. She survived the crash, dodged the rapids, persevered through the NetWatch purges, and watched the black wall go up with her own virtual eyes, and she's not one to make up fairy tales. So why am I telling this? I'm telling you this because what she told me seemed unbelievable at first. So she tells me after a bottle and a half of Joe Teal, Mike, she says, the net isn't what it seems. She continued by asking me a question. Why do you think Bart Moss named them demons anyway? Because that's what they are. Raish didn't invent the net, he discovered it. She looked me dead in the eyes and she said, the net is hell, and Bart Moss opened the door. So over the next few hours, she lays out her case. She talked about the similarities between, how did she put it, hyperfractus stratified computational data synthesis and the practices of the legendary Scholomance. She said that NetWatch has its origins in the Vatican and that the Black Wall sings in Aramaic. Now, listeners, you know I'm a skeptical guy. I don't run every rumor I hear despite what my detractors might say. And I might have kept this one to myself if it weren't for the fact that I've known her for ages, and she's not a kook. So what do you folks think? I'd love to hear from some of the runners in my audience. I'm here to listen. Newsflash, people. You've heard about this relic that Arasaka's teasing to the rich and famous? It's all over the scream sheets. Copy your personality engram into a chip, and your loved ones don't have to say goodbye when you finally die. Carry your dear sweet grandma around on the chip, ask her for advice, or pick me up whenever you need it. Eternal life of a sort. Of course, this is only on offer to the richest and most powerful people. Immortality isn't for squeebs like you and I, the common man. But is there more to it than that? We know that Arasaka's been working on mind emulation technology for half a century now. Most notably with the infamous Soul Killer. You've probably heard of it. It's a net weapon capable of copying your mind to a secure server and leaving your body an empty vessel. And what do they do with the copies? They interrogate them. There's some experimentation, a little torture, you know, the good stuff. So you, a billionaire executive, decide to get yourself copied so your precious offspring never have to be without your sage wisdom. Or so you can give your annual speech at the company Christmas party. I mean, what would the world do without you? And Arasaka gladly makes a copy of your brain, puts it on a chip, and hands it over. But not before making a copy for themselves. And that copy goes straight to digital interrogations, where they pull your psyche apart bit by bit until they've squeezed every last memory out of you. Every compromising situation, every crime, every heartache, your secret fears and desires. And now you belong to them. Literally. Yeah, someone in Arasaka's marketing division should get a raise for this one. They've taken the most feared weapon in Arasaka's arsenal and turned it into a luxury consumer item. That's pretty impressive when you think about it. And remember, operators are standing by.
Welcome to N54 News. I'm Jillian Jordan, and here's what's happening in the world today. The last active photovoltaic solar farms have been decommissioned in Nevada and Utah. Solar power generation, once seen as the future of clean energy in America, has suffered significant setbacks in today's more extreme climate. The layer of dust suspended in our atmosphere, a result of the Himalayan wars, has limited the amount of solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface. More importantly, the increasing regularity of hurricanes and sandstorms caused frequent and costly damage to most solar farms. Unsurprisingly, wind power has fared just as poorly. The number of active turbines has plummeted by 63% over the last 15 years alone. It appears Q2 will remain the uncontested leader in the energy sector for the foreseeable future. In mainland Europe and the Mediterranean, the humanitarian crisis has grown worse. According to the latest report, as much as 20% of the continent is no longer suitable for human habitation. Temperatures in Sicily, Malta, and the Cyclades have reached as high as 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Air pollution in Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania now exceeds the continent's average by more than 2,000%. However, heads of state in France, England, and Germany have issued a joint statement in which they preclude the option of government intervention. Their statement reads, quote, "Interference by government authority is interference in the free market. The disruption of natural market mechanisms only serves to hinder the optimal path for solutions to current problems." End quote. In other news, China has become the first country in the world to formally ban the use of human-controlled road vehicles. From now on, Chinese citizens can use only autonomous vehicles approved by government regulators. State-validated self-driving vehicles will be limited to pre-authorized routes, such as a person's commute to and from work. The Chinese government has given citizens a week to report all manually operated vehicles still in use, and to submit all bicycles for installation with state-issued GPS tracers. Thank you for watching N54 News. Join us again next time.
Welcome to Safe and Sound. My name is Sergeant Dobbs, and today I'll show you how to feel safe in your own home. Our loyal friend, Mr. Puggins, has just moved into a new apartment. What should he keep in mind? Starting with the basics, he should make sure that he has the latest NCPD certified armored doors and blinds. Don't let your prized possessions fall into the paws of petty thieves. But in the event any criminals do get inside your home, it's always smart to be prepared. That's why Mr. Puggins keeps a weapon in every room, always within arm's reach. And for you folks who consider no price too high for your safety, consider installing your own home turret system to take care of even the nastiest intruders. If you prefer the personal touch, hire a private security guard from a reputable corporation. It appears Mr. Puggins learned the hard way that any old gun for hire could shoot you in the back at the drop of a hat. Also, it goes without saying, a home surveillance system is essential hardware to keep an eye out for suspicious activity. And, of course, Mr. Puggins cannot forget the security of his local micronet. You wouldn't want to give a nefarious netrunner access to your washing machine, would you? Last but not least, invest in a Kevlar vest. With an added layer of protection available at all times, Mr. Puggins no longer fears the occasional stray. Bullet, that is. Now, with everything in place, Mr. Puggins can finally sit back and relax. After all, there's no place like home. That's all for this episode of Safe and Sound. Stay alive out there.
So people, listen up, this is serious. I want you to think about this. You know the name Raven. You know Moore, Dynalar, and of course, Kuroshi. They're the finest eye makers in the world. Probably you've got at least one of them in your skull right now, don't you? But do you ever wonder who's watching behind those eyes? I think it's time you do. Because those eyes aren't yours, you know. Somebody makes them, somebody programs them. Those moments you think are private? How can you be so sure no one's watching? The next time you're out doing a deal, think about it. Maybe when you pull the trigger on that job, the corp who manufactured your eyes has evidence. You think you aren't a target for blackmail? You better think hard about that last one, Chumba, and be honest with yourself. Where do you think they get the data sets for the newest brain dances? Probably your private life. But hey, don't limit your imagination because the corporations sure don't. What if there's stuff they don't want you to see? A little chameleon filter there, some perception coding here, and suddenly they can decide what you even get to see. Who knows what they might want to hide from you? Spies, secret labs, facilities, and of course, that kick murder squad they sent to your door because you knew too much. So, you think seeing is believing? Not with these synthetic eyes.
Hello, my name is Arif Iqbal, and this is WNS News. In today's international segment, we turn our eyes towards Asia. The summit between China and India has ended with the signing of a new trade agreement. Under the agreement, the tariffs for iridium, dysprosium, and lanthanum, rare metals necessary for the construction of the Chi-Yu-2 orbital station, have been lifted. The signatories have also agreed to the free movement of organic persons and biopodders between the two countries. This is the latest step in the two nations' push for greater economic integration, and the benefits such cooperation brings. This flies in stark contrast to the NUSA's protectionism and trade war policies under President Myers. In science news, biotechnical researchers have announced another breakthrough in genetics: the restoration of 3 previously extinct animal species: the North American beaver, the swift fox, and the eastern cottontail. Though back from the dead, these species will not be reintroduced to their natural habitats for fear of an increased risk of zoonotic disease, similar to the Great Bird Flu of 2061 and the rat fever of 2072. For the time being, the animals will only be grown on special order. The people of Turkey are bracing themselves for a radioactive sandstorm yet again this year. Meteorologists expect southern winds to carry several dozen tons of irradiated dust from the former states of Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The fallout from these territories, devastated during the so-called suicide war, remain the primary source of radiation that falls onto Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean. After the break, we take a closer look at the new sneakers from Avante that hit Night City shelves tomorrow.
Hey, I'm Josh Kevorkian, and as always, your business is my business. We'll kick off the day with a broad scan of the market. Kiroshi climbs 2, Quadra dips by 1, New American Auto Works revs up by 1.5. But the day's big head turner? Orbital Air rocketing by 10 points. Don't touch that volume. You heard right. 10 points. But why? How? Coming off a disappointing year, no new announcements, the release of longtime CEO Leslie Wawuda. Who could justify even an any of investment into the stagnant aerospace giant? And yet, don't forget, folks, many huge accounts out there are managed by AIs. You blink an eye and they've already bought and sold shares twice over in billion-euro-dollar deals. The problem is we don't always know what drives their decisions. And frankly, the owners of the funds they manage couldn't care less, so long as they see those profits ticking up. But, my dear viewers, I say we dig deeper. How could Orbital Air grow so drastically, so quickly? My friends, I see only one logical explanation. Those AIs expect a big boost in demand for orbital flights in the very near future. But why? World war? Environmental catastrophe? Perhaps the rise of the machines? That we may never know. Whatever conclusion the AIs have deduced from their data crunch, they seem intent on keeping it to themselves. Regardless of our fates, the time to buy is now. After all, we may need the windfall to buy our tickets to the moon once the world finally goes to hell.
Good evening, Night City. My first guest tonight is the president of the Church of Eliyahu the Last Emancipator and bane of Arasaka's PR department, one Reverend Culver.
Praise be to thee, our Father in heaven.
And our second guest is Karina Lee, host of the Chip In program, which promotes the use of cybernetic implants. How's life treating you, beautiful?
Can't complain, Ziggy. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'd like us to talk about the most exclusive and highly sought-after implant on the market today, Arasaka Corp's Relic. But maybe we ought to make sure our fair audience is up to speed. Karina, what is Relic exactly? In a word, if you could.
In one word? I'd say immortality.
Immortality? Really?
That's right. Relic allows you to transfer the consciousness from a dying person, finding a new home for their soul on a transferable chip. This person, they'll never leave your side, a companion forever with you in your own consciousness. Just imagine if...
Child, think for a moment about what you're saying. This relic